Hi, everyone that is joining us. Thank you for being here. We're going to get started here in just a second. Get over here on 110 Live. That's it. Gotta love tech, right? I think our LinkedIn Live buddies are not going to see us today, but we'll share it over there later. We'll have a more intimate conversation. All right. So if you put in the chat where you're coming from, we would appreciate that. And now we will jump into it. So thank you again for joining us, maybe on your lunch hour on the East Coast or for breakfast on the West Coast. So we have some people here from North Carolina, New Jersey, that's your backyard there, Texas, and a couple more people coming in here. So I am joined today by the fabulous Bob Miglani, who I have had the privilege of getting to know as we both love myopia and really brought that to our practices. So we may have to go into a myopia thing here later on. Bob, can you introduce yourself to everyone?
Absolutely. And Brianna, I'm a big fan. I love what you're doing, and I love the passion and the commitment that you have. And also you have the clinical foundation. You're actually in the trenches and as an optometrist practicing and seeing patients. So I love that. So thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be with you. I'm Bob Miglani. I'm a best-selling author. I've written 3 books, Washington Post bestseller, other, sort of international bestseller. And I happen to be married to an optometrist. Her name is Dr. Miglani. And that's how I got into this business. I was helping her in her practice. I was working in my job. I worked at Pfizer, a little known company called Pfizer in New York City for about 23 years. And what I did was sales and marketing, a bunch of other things. And I was helping my wife in her practice. That's how I got into this business. And I helped her with myopia management and really doing marketing and understanding communications to parents, not the patient, parents. And then we founded Hoot together as co-founders a few years ago. And that's what I do now with full-time is I help optometrists like yourself and others here with myopia management and really growing and building that practice.
Awesome. And then I, like Bob had said, I'm also a huge fan of him. So if you're not following him on LinkedIn, do yourself a favor and follow him. He's always giving amazing content over there. I did swallow my frog this morning, so we can get in there. And I am the co-founder of Dr.Contact Lens, which I see some of our users on here. So thank you so much for your support. We're continuing to grow and add features to the platform so we can better serve our patients. And I have a private practice. I actually am the full owner now of this practice. It was a 7-year buy-in, buy-out. 7 years went a lot faster than I thought it did. And we just retired Dr. Garmizo about a week and a half ago. So I can kind of talk a little bit about that and how patients are reacting. And it's been entertaining the last week and a half here in the practice. So let's jump in, Bob, and we'll share my screen here. Get this going. So again, Dr.Contact Lens, really what Hoot is also doing is really connecting your practice, your patients, and all of that comes with. And I think in optometry, we live in a very special environment where we get to sell what we prescribe, and we can go into many different facets of optometry. It can be myopia, it can be dry eye, But really, all of the marketing is very similar in how we approach the patients and how we get them to that yes, and not be scared to really sell to our patients. I said a bad word there, right? But you and I, as hunters and gatherers and really prospecting, we live in a really special environment where patients come to us for our expertise. We're not really out there hunting for prospects, and we really can mine what's in our practices without doing a lot of these bells and whistles out there that many other companies have to do to get lead generation. So again, here, getting your patient's eyes on you. We're going to talk about some expert marketing strategies to simplify and really grow our practices. So again, going in and now being full throttle, being a full practice owner now, and all that we've really done to transition this practice and what patients have really said about that doctor. I'll share that in a second. So again, if you're just joining us, I'm Dr. Brianna Rhue, practice in South Florida with Bob Miglani. And let's just jump right into it. So you and I have had many candid conversations about the environment here, where we are a bunch of savers, typically, not a bunch of investors when it comes to our practice, especially when it comes to being patient-centric and marketing strategies here. So why is it important, Bob, for us to shift our focus from saving to investing? And as we go through these slides, you'll see these QR codes up at the top here. We've got Hoot, where you can learn more. Again, not here to sell you on any of these things, just here to want you to know what's out there so you can improve it. And then you've got the Dr.Contact lens link up there as well. So why is this important, Bob? Saving versus investing, and how can we look at this different as doctors?
Well, let's take a look at what savings means. Is to save money so that you can have a better profit margin, so you can have a better life for yourself and your family and everybody, right? So you're trying to save money. The problem is the marketplace is very competitive in the business that we're in. Optometry has drastically changed, and primary optometry is dying. You need to become a specialist, and you need to use these tools, these technology tools, to grow your practice for the future. And so what you want to do is, yes, of course, you have to be smart about saving money. And so, so you need to use, yes, you need to reduce expenses. But the more important thing you ought to be focusing on is investing. And here's why. 3 reasons. Number one, in order to grow, you need to invest in new technology tools, because headcount is very expensive. Headcount is very expensive. Yes, we can hire a staff person to phone and actually talk to all of our patients. But why not use text messaging, right? Like 10, 20 years ago, text messaging was not around. And so what we try to do, oops, what happened here?
It's okay.
We got disconnected. I don't know, are we still on? Right.
Right here.
So the way to do this is really to invest, because you're not going to, so years ago, we didn't have text messaging, right? And so today we have text messaging. It's like saying, why wouldn't you have text messaging? Because patients want it. You need to invest because patients want it, and we need to find a way to reach patients, right? Number two, investing is important because you need to find new solutions for the problems you're dealing with, right? So today, we don't think twice about hiring a bill collection agency for optometry practice to get money from these patients who are not paying their bills, right? What are you going to do? Hire somebody in your staff full time to do that? No, that's not going to work. So it's really important today to make sure that what you're doing is investing for the future. So that's the 2 most important things. And the last thing I want to just say is that if you don't invest, you don't grow. So if you don't invest in the kind of great tools and technology, or you don't invest in yourself, you're not going to grow. It's like saying, Brianna, these days, everyone wants to lose weight, right? Beginning of the year, you want to lose weight, you want to get healthier. Well, what are you going to do? Not invest your time in going for a jog, not invest in fruits and vegetables. So you really need to think about investing as a choice you need to make proactively to help yourself. You're not trying to invest so that, Brianna and Dr. Contact Lens or Hoot grows. That's not the point. The point is for yourself. Be very selfish and think of investing as investing in yourself. That's what you're trying to do. So those are the reasons I would say we need to move away from this cost to line, which is the saving line, to a revenue line. How
Yeah.
are you going to grow the revenue?
And I think where we fall into kind of the savings trap, right, is we do it with patients with rebates. We do it with discounting our services. We do it where we're going to, move from this vendor to this vendor to save $2, right? Or save to this by getting a 4% rebate or something like that along those lines, right? And if you look at that out and you actually do the numbers backwards, you could have just seen a higher paying patient and made that back and not tripped over all of this money there. So if you're spending $10,000 with a vendor and they're giving you a 3% rebate, right? It's $300.
Right.
Like we spend that at a hotel room in one night,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So go off your American Express points or whatever you're going to do, but really now understand the value that you have within your practice. So saving is one line, just like you said, Bob, I liked that. And then now we're looking at the revenue line, and we have so much sitting here in all of our practices. So why is it important that we reduce friction in our practices so our patients want to do business with us? So we make it pretty hard for patients to do business with us. Why is it important to turn this over a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a great question. When you think about typical optometry practices, optometrists are wonderful at giving great patient care. Their focus is on getting great eye exams, really, really great eye exams, and managing the patient's care. The problem becomes it's just overwhelming, right? The reason too many optometrists don't look at reducing friction is just, oh my God, it's overwhelming. It's just a lot of work to do. And so one of the things that I think about every day is that reducing friction allows new patients to be captured in terms of revenue faster, better, stronger, and at a higher price point. So giving you an example, a very simple example is when the patients come into your exam room, your office, how many forms are they filling out, right? If they're filling out 5 forms, or how long are they taking to fill out these forms, right? 10 forms, 30 forms. So look at your forms. A very simple thing is, how do you reduce your form and paperwork? Because nobody likes paperwork. And the reason you do this is because when you have dropped let's say 50% of the time the patients are, so instead of spending 10 minutes filling out forms, they're spending 5 minutes filling out the forms, patients are going to remark about your practice to other people. They say, I went to see this eye doctor, and I was really surprised. They had 1 form for me to fill out. It was crazy. It was like ridiculous. And I was like in the office. I was in the exam chair or the exam room for the doctor, and 10 minutes later. That's called reducing friction. And the reason you do this is because you make more money. I mean, it's about money. It's about business. Okay. It's not about saying, oh, I'm going to try to become the Nordstrom of, yes, that's great. But why? Why? Because you can have a better life in your business, and your patients will come to you more so, and people will talk about you when you reduce your friction in your practice. So that's just the forms is a very simple thing. Myopia management, it's a complicated thing, as you know, Brianna. And so when parents leave the exam room, they're like, we're going to go home and think about it. You got to chase after them to sign the form, right? Oh, can I fax it to you? They're like, I don't have a fax machine, right? Can I email it to you? Well, I know a lot of doctors don't even email forms, practice forms, because how do you get the signature? Someone has to scan it on the other end. So one of the things Hoot has is a completely digital form agreement system. You zip it to parents, zip it on an email. They sign with their finger on their phone, and it clicks send, and it sends back to the practice. So you're not chasing after parents to sign the contract for starting them on my side or whatever, right? You're not chasing after them. That's called reducing the friction. And what that does is gives you more revenue. Remember, we talked about it in the beginning, revenue is the line you want to focus in on. And your expenses are, yes, of course you have to manage your expenses, but focus on the R, and that's what reducing friction does.
Yeah, and I think one thing here to remember is our patients, they want to do business with us. We just don't make it easy for them to do so. So like what we're doing at Dr. Contact Lens, if you know you're going to hand somebody, their contact lens prescription to walk out of your door, you're literally handing somebody $300 to spend outside of your store. And they're going to lose the form. They're going to have to call you back, right? It comes to being about the patient. At the end of the day, the patient owns their record. We're just holding it for them. And so if we remember that, and then also doing business as we're consumers, I think a lot of us forget that I don't want to drive to pick up my stuff at Target anymore. That stuff's delivered, right? Via Amazon in like now under an hour. Everything now is done digitally. So look at how you do business with other businesses. And I look for motivation and inspiration from other industries. And every time that I'm in that consumer phase, how are these companies reducing that friction? How are they making it easier for me to do the business? And what Jen does, my co-founder Jennifer Tabiza in her office, she calls it the 1 minute check-in. Her patients are checked in within 1 minute and they are back to see her in under 6 to 7 minutes. That's been a huge practice builder for her. So how, again, forms, online check-in, online looking at their glasses and picking out frames, texting them things, right, for reminders. So where can you digitize a lot of this? And that's pretty easy to do. So yeah. You're a big advocate of, and also us, right? Text messaging has been here for a while, right? People don't want to pick up phones. That's totally gone, in 10 years. Look at how fast this is sped up, where I was like, what's a text message? And like T9ing everything, right? Took a little while, I got pretty good at T9. So now, why is it important? And how do we easily show up on our patients' mobile devices? And if you haven't watched where Bob talks about Google your business, go back and replay that, and we can put that in the link for you to rewatch. It is really easy to do. So jump into that for us.
Yeah, so here's why this is important, Brianna. We're living in an attention economy. Everyone is trying to get the consumer's attention, okay? And if you're talking about optometry, let's talk about the patient, let's talk about myopia management, dry eye, whatever you want to talk about. But everyone is trying to get the attention of the patient walking into the practice. It's from their workplace, from their friends, from their family, from the silly WhatsApp videos that are forwarded to everybody, right? These jokes and things. We're living in a very attention grabbing, society today. And so what you want to try to do is to live where your patients are living. And they're living increasingly on mobile devices and their text messaging. So that's where they are. They're on text messaging. Yes, a little bit on email, but really on text, even text messaging. I was looking at my text messaging. I was trying to find something. I'm like, oh my God, I wish there was a Google search on my text messaging because it was so hard to even look through text messaging. So we're living in a very attention, demanding economy. And so the solution for you, if you want to be capturing the attention of your patients, you've got to live on this device. You've got to live here. You've got to show up on their feed every single morning. You've got to show up with a content that's relevant to them because that's where they're living, right? They're so busy. And so that's what I encourage people to do is use text messaging. A simple example is I give all of our, now we have like 80 customers, all of our customers, our partners. I do, you've seen me on webinars. I give my personal cell phone because I want to completely reduce the friction. And because I know people want to talk, they're like, how do I get hold of Bob? Usually when you call an optometry office, you get that tree, that voicemail tree, which is like, press one to do this. I'm like, oh my God, this is
I did this
so
with my
much
mortgage yesterday. It was the longest phone tree. I think it was 10 minutes before I talked to a human. I was like, oh God.
As soon as I get those trees, I'm like, operator, customer service, because I just start yelling it. And everyone laughs around me but I'm like, I just want to get to the point. Get me the person. Like, why can't you just make it simple for me? And so when you're appearing on text messages, you are being loved and appreciated and seen. And that's what you want to do as soon as possible. So use the systems like use the systems for text messaging that are available to you and for and really give patients your cell phone, especially the higher end ones, 100%. Myopia management, dry eyes, these are concierge type patients. Give them your cell phone. Don't be so scared. They're not going to call you. I've seen this time and time again. Oh, they're going to call me all the time. They may call you once. And when they do call you, that's an invitation for you to impress the hell out of them, really. And when you do that, you're going to get 10 more patients because you took that call and you solved the problem for the patient right there, or you worked with them to solve the problem. And guess what? That's going to make you remarkable, meaning remarked upon by several other people. So that's what you want. You want the invitation from somebody to say, I need your help. Can you solve this problem? You want that phone call. So get that
Yeah, and
phone call.
your staff also wants to text. They don't want to be on these phone calls either, right? So it's about picking up contacts. It's about picking up glasses. All of this can be automated. And I love what you said at the beginning there. Really, attention is our patient's commodity. So if you're not showing up on Google where you should be, right? That's an easy thing. You don't have to pay companies buku bucks to go do that for you, right? Work on your reviews. And one thing too that we talked about in another webinar that I'll bring up here is bad reviews, right? That's okay too, but go look at your competitors' bad reviews. Don't make those same mistakes. Learn from the bad reviews of other people. So now your practice is already ahead of the game and you know how to react to those bad reviews and be proactive instead of reactive. And with
There's a
the
great book
showing,
I read, exactly to your point, Rihanna. There's a great book I read years ago called A Complaint is a Gift.
love
It's
it.
an opportunity. So it's exactly what you're saying is if you get those bad reviews, you got to get on it. You have to respond and do it thoughtfully and fast.
Yes, I love that. And it is an opportunity to engage. And that's why we implemented online reviews where we texted everybody and people were like, well, why are you texting everybody? And I was like, I want to know the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it makes my staff accountable also because they know anybody at any given time can review them, right? And we've got nothing but, and you'll obviously have that patient, we all do, and that's okay. You just brush it off and you remember the positive instead of the negative, right? So we're
Absolutely.
engaged with negative, but we can do the positive there. And with mobile devices here, you said something about this phone tree that kind of triggered something for me. So in Dr.Contact Lens, we're able to show you when patients are doing business with you and when patients are placing their orders. So 30 to 40% of patients are placing their orders through the text, 80 to 85% of the time, that's growing, between 6 p.m. and 9 a.m.
Wow.
Another big chunk of patient orders that come in are between 11:30 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. when people are closed for lunch or when you're doing a staff training. So think of that's another 25 or 30% of orders. So if you are, and that's obviously when everybody's going to lunch and you've got one or two staff members still kind of holding down the fort, that's when these phone calls are coming in. You've got to be there for your patients. We can no longer close for lunch. We've never really done that in my practice. We'll close for a staff training here or there. But again, we have these things in place where patients can still do business with us.
Yes.
Make online appointments when it's convenient for them. Order their contact lenses. Search our optical for what they're looking for and order different things. So that's an important piece to this. Why is it important? And I see a lot of our colleagues, because we do demos all day, right? Where we're learning about practices and we consistently see where there's opportunities. Why is it important that we make small investments now for a bigger return later?
Because you're going to grow. And the reason is that the most important thing you do is to get started fast. And small investments now are important, as well, because you're going to learn new things, you're going to experiment, you're going to try things, and you're going to enter a marketplace that an opportunity, you're going to come upon an opportunity you did not expect to come on. So, it's as simple as things, a very simple thing, right? Between now and the end of June, right? Let's say end of June, you're going to get a lot of kids in your practice. Let's just say, for example, right? How are you going? And 40% of those kids in your practice are likely to have some sort of myopia. Okay, that's some statistic I read the other day. Okay, so 40% of all the kids you're going to see are likely going to have some form of myopia. Okay, between now and the end of June, how are you going to capture them? What are you going to do? So invest right now in a place where you can capture those leads, those prospects. So because summer's going to be dead, they're all going to be on vacation. right? And so that small investment in capturing those kids that are potentially myopic, right, between now and the end of June, so before school lets out, capturing them so that in September comes, you're going to be able to get some return later on. So that's just a very simple example of trying something now and getting a bigger return later on. The second thing I would say is in terms of investment is the thing you have to go into work with every day is, what are the revenue generating tasks that I will do today that will keep my practice thriving in the next 2 years? What are the revenue generating tasks I'm going to do today? Okay. And a lot of optometrists, if you just think, okay, I just got to go see that patient. I've got a 9 o'clock patient, right? And so the other thing is most optometrists today are working in the business and not, we all heard this, right? On the business. And so the reason you want to do that is so that you can really have a business later on that you can sell. You can sell. I'll tell you a story. Years ago in my wife's optometry practice, I got a phone call and it was from a private equity person. And this is years ago, like 10 years ago. And he said, hey, do you want to sell the practice? I said, no, she's just starting out. It was, 7 years in or something. And I said, by the way, what do you got? Like, what are you going to offer me? What do you got? And he said, oh, 3 to 5 times revenue. I'm like, that's nothing. I'm not revenue, sorry, profit, EBITDA, right? EBITDA. I'm thinking the software business is a little different, but so for optometry, he said at the time, 3 to 5 times earnings or net income or EBITDA, right? Earnings before income, taxes, depreciation, allocation. That's what it stands for, EBITDA, right? 3 times EBITDA or net income is what we're going to offer you, 3 to 5 times. I'm like, dude, that ain't much. I'm like, are you kidding me? That's nothing. How's my wife going to retire on this? Like, no. So I'm like, there's no way doing primary optometry for working her butt off for 10, 20, whatever years. And then you have nothing to show except 3 times EBITDA. Like, that's like really, it's like nothing. So your EBITDA so you either have to do a couple of things, either buy another practice or grow this one to next level. And that day opened up my eyes to the notion of revenue and making the investments now so that when she does go to sell, she can do that in a good way. And I learned this in the small business, Brianna. We know, you may know, my parents, we grew up having a Dairy Queen store. We ran a Dairy Queen. And my parents, we tried to have them sell, my sisters and I tried to have them sell the Dairy Queen many, many years. And they're like, no, we like this, we like this. I'm like, no, we got to sell. By the time they came to sell, that business was worth a third of what they could have gotten 5 years prior. A third. And it broke my heart because that's what they counted on for their retirement. And it sucks. So you want to avoid the pain. You're going to get pain. Either you're going to get a pain now or you're going to get pain 10 years from now. You might as well take the pain now so that you have pleasure later on. That's my suggestion.
And I was just reading a book called Apollo's Era, where it's looking back at kind of pandemics and what we get out of it, right? And so you had the 1918 pandemic and the Roaring 20s. You had a pandemic in like 50s or like 68, and then came the 70s, right? And I'm one of those 70s children here from my parents. And then we went in now to panic mode within our practices a couple years ago. And I don't think we've really gotten back out of that. And now that we know that we're going to live to see another day, that we've got this behind us, we can really now start planning for that 1-year vision, that 3-year vision, that 5-year future, right? And with AI coming, and if I hear that one more term, like chat GBT and all this stuff, like, guys, we'll figure it out. It shouldn't be a threat, but we go into like our little dark rooms and get scared. But this is, again, I'm excited that a bunch of you are here, is we just have to keep growing. We have to keep learning. That's human nature, is to want change and be part of that change. And with change does sometimes bring chaos, which Bob is an expert in, but be positive, go in. Your staff wants to see you be positive. And when the pain and the friction come up front, the return on the back end is beyond. If you don't have that pain up front, it's going to be way harder in the future. So for one thing, like Dr.Contact Lens, we're agnostic. You can move your business from one place to another. That vendor has to win your business. And at the end of the day, that's how it should work. You shouldn't be locked in to doing business with people that you don't want to do business with. And by giving them our data and information and patients away, we're doing that without even knowing that we're doing it. So that brings us to our next topic here on your EMRs, electronic medical records. Gotta love to hate them, right? They can't and they won't make the investment in our practices for our success, which is where Hoot has come from, where Dr.Contact Lens was born. Why is this important for us to understand? And you coming from Pfizer and understanding data and understanding marketing, teach us something here, Bob.
Well, EMRs were designed, as I understand them, to give the largest insurance business in America data. The largest insurance business is the US government, Medicare, CMS. CMS wanted data so as to ensure that they have data on the population so they can figure out whether the investments in healthcare were paying off. Okay. So then there was this massive rush in the last, I guess, 20 years to move from paper charts to electronic charts.
You're giving me the shakes over here.
Do you remember that
conversion? Oh gosh.
Do you remember that conversion? Holy cow. I remember Shefali did it with OfficeMate. It was a server in the back storage room somewhere in her office. I mean, I'm like, oh my God, this is so complicated. So like, it was so brutal to convert her paper charts to OfficeMate. Now, that's the shift. The shift happened, right? And guess what, right? It was paid for by CMS, by the US government. They paid you to pay these EMR companies to shift the paper charts to digital charts. And for years, for the last 10 years, it's been stuck. Done nothing except put a new bubble, new bullet, new this, new that. Where is the innovation? There is none because they don't have to. They make so much, EMRs, HR companies, Epic and so on, they make so much money off of just copying the software and giving it to other doctors. And the growth has been massive, okay? So they don't do anything. They just sit there and gather data, and which you use, and the government uses, insurance companies use, right? So you get reimbursement by insurance companies. Now, the big question today is not about getting reimbursement by insurance companies, because that's been solved, generally speaking. Code, this, that, and the other, right? Going to be solved. The big question today is, you're living in a world of greater competition. How are you going to differentiate yourself from the thousands of other practices, hundreds of other practices in your area? What are you going to do? You have to do marketing. And in order to do marketing, you must use new tools and new technologies. So you have to move away. So EMRs are kind of like 1.0, if you will. Now it's like saying you want to have a Nokia phone. Anybody have a Nokia phone? Right? Remember the Nokia
Snake
phone?
Was super fun.
Right? Or the Motorola phone with a little thing that went on top. I think it's still the antenna, right? Remember that antenna? That's an EMR, dude. That's an EMR. It's got a nicer face to it. But we're living in an environment of the iPhone and the Android where you speak and things are delivered, right? So what you need to do now in your practice is shift. And I'm not saying EMRs are bad. You need it. There's no way you can live without it. You need the EMRs for sure. But now you need to take it to the next level, is practice differentiation. You know, how do you address the new patients who are interested, and how do you reach them? How do you touch them? And there is where you must invest in marketing. Marketing is the way to take yourself and put your beautiful, wonderful white coat wearing face in front of your audience. And because you're such good doctors, I know optometrists everywhere, you're amazing, but you got to get out there. You can't hide behind the EMRs in your office. And so a lot of doctors turn to, unfortunately, you've seen this, Brianna, a lot of doctors just go to directly to social media. And that's okay, that's good, you need to do that, but you can't compete on social media, it's too busy. So, but right now, the low-hanging fruit is to use technology tools like Dr.Contact Lens, really to get in front of your customers, to reduce the friction, use tools like Hoot. And I'm not saying that because we're both on this, I'm saying that because, dude, I've looked around at the optometry tools, there ain't that many that are effective. There are not that many tools that are really effective. And I'm telling you, you've got to get to marketing. Otherwise, more and more kids coming out of optometry school. They're starting practices. These chains are coming out. There's a massive threat looming in primary optometry, and you need to take charge right now. So that's the reason I think the history of EMRs, you need to move to kind of, not EMRs, but, doctor marketing, reaches. That's what I would call it. DMRs, doctor marketing reaches. There's a new term for you.
There's a new term. I love it. And I'm going to throw another new term out there too. So if you look at customer acquisition cost, you and I are very familiar with customer acquisition cost. A lot of us are relying on vision plans. That's why we don't get reimbursed like we should from vision plans, is because there is a cost to acquire that patient in your practice. So if you take that a step further, and we look at patient acquisition cost, if we don't like the word customer, many of us don't, but in my practice, I know when a patient's a patient and I know when they're a customer or a consumer, and we're selling directly to that. So what we're doing with this is integrating with these EMRs. So if you see something that doesn't integrate with your EMR, you got to go to the EMR and you got to push them to push these integrations forward. Because again, you're their customer, not the other way around. So yeah, we're not asking, you can't move EMR overnight. That is a pain, right? And there's a lot of cost that comes along there. But understand that really the doctor is the pawn in the entire system, and we're also the engine in our practices. So when we aren't seeing patients, or we're not hiring an associate to see patients while we're working on our business, we have to do this through automation. And that comes with understanding the value of your data. If we're giving it away for free, it doesn't give you freedom, creates friction, doesn't create function. And now you still haven't solved your problem and you're a year behind where you should be. What I love is that we really are the competition. Everybody pays an immense amount of money to get our customer to the online world. We have it right here. We're just literally letting it all go. And with the amount of people that we have on this webinar, just look at one contact lens prescription walking. It's not the one that walked out of your door or that one myopia patient that walked out of your door. It's the 40,000 that walked out that day that we didn't happen. And that's what's making online retail grow. So I'm a big advocate that, again, why we're sharing all of this with you is that we can work together and we can be very effective in doing that and understanding what we have right here in our practices without doing all the bells and whistles and everything else. You don't need that. You already have the mine of gold in your practice, and now you get to go after it. So this brings me here to one of our last topics here, and then we'll answer a question there that I see. Why don't we understand our value, Bob? And how can we really get to the bottom there of the value that we bring to the patient, that we can charge the patient thousands of dollars for myopia management or do a dry eye treatment, right? We have to be there, but we have a value issue, many of us do, where we don't understand it and we like to give away the farm.
Yeah, that's a great question. I talked about this issue with my wife, Dr. Miglani, my spouse, and she's like, I just want to practice great optometry. Leave me alone with these videos you're asking me to do. Leave me alone with all this marketing you're asking me to do. I just want to be a good doctor. And it's because she comes from this mentality of, two very important things, I think, and you do, and most optometrists do, which is understanding the science, really understanding, the science. And she loves the science. She's a student. She's always goes to every webinar. She just loves learning. She's always taking classes. That's one. And the second is to serve the patient, right? And serve. And serving means seeing them in their clinic. And so she just wants to practice science and practice on the patient that walks into the office. Marketing is not what most optometrists signed up for. They just haven't. They went to optometry school to become optometrists. They didn't go to optometry school to do marketing. I'm sorry. The world has changed. I'm sorry. The world has changed. I'm sorry. I say this on all my speaking I've ever done and Embrace the Chaos, all my books and everything. I'm sorry. The world has changed. And in order to do good optometry, you need to be a good marketer. That's the fact of reality today. And that is because, like every industry, optometry is being commoditized. There's so much more competition for optometry than ever before, right? We're talking about not just Warby Parker, and selling frames and glasses. There's new models in Walmart, and there's so many other models are coming out. Amazon, you don't think Amazon's going to come out with a healthcare for optometry? Come on, are you kidding me? It's just days away. Like who knows, but it's not that far away. So I'm sorry, the world has changed. It's changed for you and me, believe me. I know what that's like. I worked for a large company and my life changed. My world has changed, but I made a choice to become better, faster, stronger by going through the pain of learning about marketing and becoming better at it. And I encourage you, if you want to be a good optometrist today, to become a good marketer, because more patients need you. More patients need somebody like you who knows what they're doing. And they need you. That's why you should do it. You should do marketing because patients need you. And so you should know what you're worth and get what you're worth. Because I had to give you an example. I had a doctor I spoke to last week, and she's practicing in California. And she said to me, I said, what's your fees for myopia management? Give me an idea. What do you charge? She said, this range. She gave me some fees, and it was like, I don't know, a couple $1,000. It was like, no, it was like 1,500. She's like, I dropped it to $1,000 for Ortho-K myopia management program to see if I can get more. I'm like, you're telling me that all that chair time that you're spending, all that energy of going to all of that, you lowered your value in the marketplace. I said, did you get any takers? She goes, no. I said, I wonder, I bet you if you triple your fees, you're going to get more patients, because the perceived value is higher. If you price something high, the perceived value is higher. If you perceive something low, the perceived value is lower. Tell me how you feel when you walk into a Walmart or you walk into a Nordstrom. Tell me how you feel when you walk into a Motel 6 or you walk into the JW Marriott Hotel in Florida, right? Tell me the difference. It's how you feel. So the perception of value changes when you charge more. So I know optometrists are fee phobic, and I'm encouraging you, don't, get over it. Get over the fact that you got to charge, a lot, what you're worth, because you're too smart, you're too resourceful, you really understand the science, you understand the human nature and human behavior, and you're really good at managing and helping these patients. So if you want to continue doing that, you're not going to, so what happens is when you lower your price, you're going to hate your job. You're going to hate your job. You're not going to want to do it. I asked this doctor, I said, when you lowered your price, how did you feel about yourself? She goes, I hated it. I hated doing it. When I got that one patient, and I didn't get any patients, but when I get those patients, it's a low price. I hate it. I hate doing it. I know, because it sucks. Why would you do it?
And you bring up a good point there. People buy with feelings, not with logic most of the time, right? And it's about going into, I'll share this podcast I just listened to also with Tom Chi who created Google Glass. And he spoke about being in a knowledge mindset versus the learning mindset. And I'm constantly in that learning mindset. A knowledge base, when you're coming from that and spitting knowledge, right? You're not listening and you're in a closed loop, right? And when you're in a learning mindset, you're in an open loop. And so new neurons can fire, new processes can take place. And so your staff also does that. And what we're talking about with marketing here too, how I've built my myopia management practice to now over 500 patients is literally I'm marketing to my patients in my practice. Every parent that I see, right? Every kid that I see, we take a Polaroid picture and stick it on the wall. Guess where every patient walks through my practice is this wall of kids. Oh, you see kids here? Of course we see kids here, right? That has been how I've grown. It's not these bells and whistles that you do. You already have this patient base. And where this comes back to is understanding, again, the value of the patients that you have. One big thing is your contact lens patients. If I hear one more time from optometrists that there's no money in contacts, yeah, there's no money in contacts the way we all do it. There's a ton of money in contacts. That's why one of the online retailers sold for $3 billion, right? So if you, again, look at your value, that contact lens patient, that 35-year-old, 40-year-old woman that I let walk out of the door, now I've lost my myopia practice. Now I've lost my dry eye practice. So not being there for your patients is doing a disservice to the patient as well as a disservice to yourself. And I love that you kind of reciprocated that on that doctor of how it made her feel. When you feel valued, you will take better care. of your patients. And I see this again, when we talk about us being the pawn, us as physicians aren't being taken care of in the system, but we can rise to the occasion by doing little things and really reaping the rewards. So one of the questions that we have here, so again, give us your 1-minute elevator pitch here about Hoot.
Yeah, I mean, I think, should we go on this full screen? Maybe just see our faces might be
Sure.
helpful, but just, I think there's 3 things happening in the world today. This device is changing our lives in the light of our society. That's number 1. Number 2 is, if you want to grow your business, you've got to specialize. You've got to specialize. History has proven there's a cycle. There's a cycle for every industry, and primary optometry, you need to pivot to specialty optometry, and that's myopia management, specialty lenses, and dry eyes, and some more do even cosmetics and aesthetics and things like that. So you've got to specialize. That's a fact. Every industry you looked at has been commoditized, and the way to grow the next cycle of evolution is specialization. And the third is, for Hoot, what we do is we turn a doctor into a marketer using marketing automation. Hoot is marketing automation that takes content and communication and training and a process and puts it all together in a clean digital system. I'm not a consultant. I'm not a coach. I used to be a coach for leadership when I was writing books and speaking and all that. I'm not doing that. But Hoot is completely a digital marketing automation platform. That's what we do. We help you take all of that stuff, the parent education, what is myopia, is ortho okay safe for my child, what should I charge, all this stuff, bottles it in a click platform that you can use to grow your business. That's kind of what we do. And I encourage you to, regardless if you use Hoot or not, or you do it on your own, get into a specialty and try to dominate and learn every day. If you do not, you will not grow, because it's all going down. $40 for iMed, really? You got to pay $40. You got to get $40 for iMed. Stop it. Like, get money that you're worth. Otherwise, you can't pay the staff. You can't afford to do that. You can't pay the rent with $40 for my exam. Pivot now and pivot faster. So I think, and I believe the future is very bright for specialty optometry, Brianna. I think it's really bright for that. So thank you so much.
Yeah. And to wrap up here, so what we do at Dr.Contact Lens, if you haven't seen it, we invite you to take a demo. We want to learn about your practice. We want to be there for you. Just like Bob had said, it's not for us to grow, it's for you to grow. And really, again, understanding your value and being there for your patients. I make little investments all day in my practice, and the patients notice little things. And as we retired out this doctor, we actually gave each of them, the last 3 months, we put together this book, and we asked them what they loved about seeing Dr. Garmizo for the last 39 years. All of them said kind of 3 things. He took his time, he listened to me, and he was a great doctor. So it's really it's not taking 15, 20, 30-minute exams with the patient. It's making sure that they felt heard. So he was a great listener, was able to take care of their issues, and he wasn't scared to charge for it. And they expect that to be that. So at the end of the day, remember your value, and the world's really your little oyster. So we all have pearls of knowledge all over the place. Little pun there, right, for marketing. But it's a fun industry, and we get to take care of people's vision, and it's time that we take care of our own visions once again. 2020 was obviously a little over there. Now let's reinvigorate that energy that we had for that, to really make that the year of the optometrist. So Bob, give us one little wrap up of a little.
Well, we have a Q&A. Do we have a Q&A? I think there's.
Oh yeah, there is a couple questions here. Is Facebook ads to register a business for voice search, Alexa, Siri, Google? Is that a real thing now? So Alexa, find me an eye doctor.
Yes. So I have not used it. I don't have much experience with it, but yes, it's a big thing because, well, it's not a big thing. I should say, yes, it's something to do. And here's why, because over time, these things, everyone's using voice more so than ever. You're using voice more so than ever. And so you got to get on it. It doesn't cost. I don't think it costs a lot. Having Alexa skills, that's what they call it when you're coding it into Alexa and all this, is going to become an important feature later on, because it's like typing. versus voice. Voice people prefer that over anything else. So I would suggest take a look at registering the business for Alexa. Use a reputable source. Don't just hire some company to pay you thousands of dollars. Experiment a little bit. Michael, I think this is Michael Tubes asking the question, asking a question. I would be very careful because at this early stage, there's not a lot of companies doing it, but choose the reputable ones. And just go online actually yourself and try it just with Alexa, how to incorporate Alexa skills into my practice, or how to get my business registered with Alexa skills. I don't know if there's a business registry official one from Alexa yet, or Siri or Google. I don't know if that's there yet. So be cautious, but I think it is something to look at, to be curious about. And if you're going to invest a little bit of money, do like a couple $100. Don't spend thousands. Do not, because it's not fully developed yet. So that's my
And my piece of advice there, we were looking into this for our practice, really looking at the demographics of voice. It's really that kind of 50+ demographic where they don't like to text. My dad uses voice for everything. It's actually annoys me so bad. I'm like, oh my gosh, really, voice search? So really, it's not that hard to implement. There are some companies out there doing it. It shouldn't, again, like Bob said, break the bank to really bring that to you. So really look at your website and things like that they can incorporate in there. One last
The basic thing
question
right
here.
now, Brianna, a lot of people don't do is Google Maps. It's like,
Yeah.
dude, it's free. It's
Yeah.
free. And you need to maximize, because Google, 90% of traffic stops on Google Maps. They don't go to your site. So optimize Google Maps profile and be really good at that.
So first off, claim your Google Maps profile.
Right.
Make sure it has a nice picture on it, because it's probably picked for you if you haven't looked at it. And really, that's an easy thing. Make sure your hours are legit. Make sure your website is up to date. Everything like that. Then we'll share, Bob, in the take home here, that your Google Maps webinar that you did.
Really. Great.
So really, thank you all for joining us today. There will be a replay of this. And with that, I think we are on
Good.
the
Yeah,
out.
thank you so much. Yeah, I just, one question was from Norma about Hoot having Spanish content. So I answered that one. Yes, we do have Spanish and Chinese content on Hoot. Thank you.
Perfect.
Brianna, thank
you
you
so
for having me.
much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Have a great day. Take care.
Bye.